Good day to you. I'm standing here in my home, getting ready to walk to campus, and I was doing a little preparation for all my classes this morning, not just this one. I was watching CNN. Yeah, I'm often watching the news, different news channels, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I check them all out. Trying to see what's going on in case there's any examples, in case there are any examples I can use in my classes. And right now I'm scrolling through channels here because I want you to take note of the content that's appearing there and see if you can find anything foreign at all as I go from channel 26 all the way down to channel 2, if I can get there. And so far I haven't seen anything from another country. Everything's American programming here so far. I'm down to channel 13 now. Here's Blue Ridge. There couldn't be more American than that, right? A gun? Yeah, and then we have Sesame Street. There's another very American icon, if you want to put it that way. True Crime Files, that's not foreign. Today, Third Hour, that's not foreign. The 700 Club, that's certainly not foreign. Today, Third Hour, that's not foreign. Live with Kelly and Ryan, that's definitely not foreign. Is that Pauly? Yeah, it's Pauly. Yeah, and then we have Ryan and Kelly and Ryan again, and Pauly again. And Dr. Phil's on Fox, that's certainly not foreign. And Pickler and Ben, what is that? I don't know what that is, but it's not looking very foreign. Face the Truth? Doubt it. Okay, so you get my point. I'm going to walk to campus now, and we're going to actually continue that line of thinking, right? Am I going to pass by anything as I go about my daily routine, just like you're going about your daily routine? Am I going to pass by any foreign media content, any television shows that are on my TV from Canada? Am I going to be able to go to Wawa, and as I pass through the checkout counter there to buy my stuff, am I going to see, in addition to USA Today, the newspaper, and the Pocono Record, the newspaper, am I going to see a London Times? Am I going to see a Frankfurter Allgemeine, which is a German newspaper? Am I going to see those kinds of choices? No. You're not going to see that in the United States. And so that introduces our subject for today, which is media imports and exports. And it's all about the idea that a country's media system has an interchange or a potential interchange with the outside world, because media are products, and companies that offer media products are trying, as we noted way back in chapter 2 on globalization, they're trying to reach new markets overseas because the audiences are saturated in their domestic market. So they look elsewhere to export those products. But here in the US, we don't have a situation where we have a lot of those media products coming from other parts of the world. I mean, the BBC is probably the most common foreign level of media content that you're going to find in the United States. So why is that? That's why we're having a class on media imports and exports. That's why we're talking about it in class today and starting it off the way that I did. And as we go through the material, I want you to start to think about your own country and the properties that that country has, and whether those properties influence the degree to which your country exports media, sends media to other countries in the world, and the degree to which your country imports media content from other parts of the world. So let's set up the three basic concepts that are at play in this chapter, or this reading, if you want to think of it that way. The three basic concepts that describe how a country can be in terms of its balance. In terms of its balance between sending stuff out of the country, media-wise, and bringing stuff into the country. So the first kind of country that we have is a country that's called an exocentric country. That's the first category of countries in terms of exports and imports. Exocentric. What an exocentric country is a country where the vast majority of its media content is imported. Now, isn't that strange? You have a country, right? The country is able to run itself to the extent that it can call itself a country, and yet it can't fill up its television programming with content from that country. It can't fill up its radio programming. It can't fill up newspapers. It can't fill up internet pages. Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about exocentric countries, because exocentric countries tend to be very small, They tend to be very poor, not always, and they tend to be surrounded by other larger, more developed countries. So these countries don't really have the ability to provide their own media content. We'll take a country like Ghana, for example, a country that I've been to in Africa. It's a poor country. Yeah. It's a country that's probably going to be rich in the future because it's got a large oil reserve that they've just discovered. But right now it's poor. It's an English-speaking country. And it's surrounded by 3 French-speaking countries. So all of these factors kind of weigh together in some ways to make Ghana, in some ways, an exocentric country. It does not have the resources that it wants to devote to creating media content right now, because those resources, which is to say government money, knowledge, training, equipment, expertise, government resources are being devoted to more important things, like trying to control AIDS, or trying to eradicate the lack of education in the country, people dropping out of school and working, well, not working, but staying in the family and, yeah, working around the house, working on farms. And so Ghana, in short, because of its poverty situation, is focused more with its resources in other areas and just can't create its own media content. That's why when you watch Ghanaian television at night, you see video after video from Nigeria, a big exporting country in Africa, that's a music video. That's how Ghanaian television is filling its airways. In those smaller countries, now Ghana's not necessarily a small country, although compared to some other African countries it's on the smaller side, but exocentric countries, those countries that have media content that is more imported in their own country than they are creating their own country, you'll find that quite commonly in smaller countries. All right, next up is the opposite end of the spectrum. This is what we call an ethnocentric country. An ethnocentric country, which is a country like the United States. An ethnocentric country is mostly consuming its own media content. There is very little coming in from other countries into an ethnocentric country's media system. The reasons for that are several. Usually ethnocentric countries are big countries like the United States. Usually ethnocentric countries are wealthy countries and therefore have a well-developed media system, which the United States certainly has. Television, radio, newspapers, the internet are all thoroughly developed in our country, and there's new avenues of them spreading all the time. Streaming, for example, is an avenue. Well, avenue is not the best metaphor, but there are new ways of developing our media industry that are coming along all the time. So the United States is an ethnocentric country. Also, ethnocentric countries tend to be on the nationalistic side. That is to say that they take pride at a low level in being American or whatever the country is, and at a high level it sort of extends to a kind of orientation where judgment is made sometimes about foreign content as not being up to standards of our own content. That's ethnocentric. You can watch a sitcom from Lebanon if you're an American, and probably one of the first reactions you might say is, wow, this is really amateur. The sets are cheap. The actors, they don't look like what I would expect them to look like. It looks cheap. You may say that about a Lebanese sitcom, and one way to look at it is, yeah, that's because the technology being used is not as advanced to produce the TV shows, and the actors aren't paid as well, etc. But another way to look at it is what you're actually doing is you're applying an American standard to judge a foreign media content. And that gets back to cultural myopia. Cultural myopia, we talked about early in the class. It's a short-sightedness, right? Where you think you know what's up ahead, like that. What is that? It's yellow. Is that a school bus? I could think it's a school bus, right? That's a school bus color. No, that's not a school bus. Although I'm sure you would have liked to have ridden in that to school. So cultural myopia, we make snap judgments. And a lot of times we're doing that based on short-sightedness because we don't have the experience of seeing that foreign perspective. And in this case, if you grow up in an ethnocentric country, that's what you can end up with. You can end up with a cultural myopic perspective where it's difficult to see the rest of the world in terms on their own, rather than seeing through your own country's ethnocentric lens. I'll give you one more example of this. I hosted a friend this weekend. Actually, he's the son of my friend, and he happened to be from Sweden. So he hung out with my son. I'm confusing the story already. They were the same age. And the next day after he hung out, I talked to him. His name was Lucas. I said, Lucas, did you have a good time with my son Gordon last night? And Lucas said, yeah. He said, his friend asked me a funny question. Gordon's friend asked him a funny question. I said, what's that? He says, his friend asked him, how are you enjoying the freedom here in the United States? And that just made Lucas laugh, because we don't know exactly what was in the mind of the young 18-year-old who asked him this question, but probably he's thinking socialism, probably he's thinking communism, probably he's thinking a whole lot of things about Lucas and his native Sweden based on those ideas, which are ideas that are being perceived through an American lens. So Lucas is probably laughing because, in their country, for example, in Sweden, you can drink a beer in a car as long as you're the passenger. Now think about that. Shouldn't that be allowed? If you truly put into the hands of the public the trust and their ability to conduct themselves in a responsible manner according to the law, why can't a passenger in a vehicle not only drink, but drink and get drunk? They're not driving, as long as they're not distracting the driver, right? What's the harm? That's illegal in our country. So when Lucas hears the question, how are you enjoying the freedom here? Freedom's a relative word. And that's an example of cultural myopia, and perhaps, as a result of never, ever, ever seeing a single piece of Swedish culture on television, growing up in the United States, watching TV your whole life, you may never run into a single thing about Sweden because we just don't import that much media content. And one final comment on the United States. The other reason for that is a financial reason. And the financial reason is, if you're ABC, CBS, and NBC, you don't want foreign competitors coming into the United States unless you're the one buying their property, like Fox bought American Idol, that television show. It bought the rights to do it, even though it's not Fox's idea. That show was invented actually by a German-owned British television station, and it was called Pop Idol in Britain, and Fox found out about it and said, let's bring that to the United States. American Idol, great television show. So that's the way that we will most often import foreign media content. We'll take an idea, we'll reshape it as America. We even do that with people, right? Justin Bieber. Can't get more American than Justin Bieber, right? Well, you can, because he's Canadian. Yeah, but we don't think of him as Canadian, right? He's come into our country. He's an American singer. All right, so that's a little bit long-winded, but that will wrap up ethnocentric countries that don't do much importing, produce most of their own stuff themselves, and can end up with some cultural myopia. Which brings us to our last category of country, which is world-centric countries. World-centric countries, they tend to be countries that have had a lot of interchange with the outside world. People coming and going into their country through immigration, through wars, through historical movements of people. Yeah, so what you have is a country that actually a lot of languages are spoken in. A country where people are speaking more than just one language, so they're naturally going to be more open to accepting foreign media content because they have a better chance of understanding it because they're speaking more languages. So that's one reason why countries are world-centric, as well as having a lot of historical interchange with the outside world. Another reason that a country can be world-centric is if it is surrounded by a lot of nations. And there's just the opportunity for more interchange. I mean, let's face it, in the United States, we only have 2 places that we can go without getting on an airplane that take us to another country. And that's Canada and Mexico. But if you go to a place like France, it's surrounded by, I think it's 11 countries. 11 countries from Luxembourg, Germany, Spain, Belgium. By the time you're done with it, France is surrounded by 11 countries. There's a lot of opportunity for interchange there. A lot of opportunity for Belgian newspapers to come into France because people are speaking the Belgian version of French, Flemish. Some would disagree with that. In France, and they want a newspaper from Belgium, so naturally Belgian newspapers are going to follow them into there. Same with film, same with TV shows. If you go to France, which is, I think, the most world-centric country that I've ever been in. You can go to any newspaper kiosk and see newspapers from all over the world. You can turn on television at night, and you're going to see a recent episode of Big Bang Theory, an American TV show. You can listen to French radio. You're going to hear Nicki Minaj. You're going to hear American stuff on French radio. So France is a very world-centric country. And part of the reason for that is because so many people are going there, have been there. Also because many people are speaking different. France is a little bit less in this respect than some other countries, but many people are speaking alternate languages. And it is a country that has interchange with the rest of the world. So it's natural that it's going to be world-centric. You'll find a lot of imported media content in France, and you'll find a lot of French media content being sent around the world. In the case of France, a former colonial empire, that media content is going to a lot of the countries that used to be part of the French colonies, right? Like Quebec. It's not a country, it's a province in France, but that's an example. Or Haiti in the Caribbean, or the French Guyana in South America. These are all countries where French is spoken, and therefore, poor countries, they need French media content. Okay, so that's going to wrap up as I stand here on the campus of East Stroudsburg University. That's going to wrap up the material on media imports and exports. Have fun with it when you look at your country for your post today. Thank you.